owning your own business is a lot harder work than I think a lot of people going into it understand.
So true.
Ohio, and welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, presented by Hippo Direct. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's unleashing creativity to grow their business. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, digital marketing dude at Hippo Direct, and you can reach me at max@hippodirect.com for any help with podcasting or digital marketing. This is episode number 52, and we have not one, not two. Okay, two. We have two amazing rock star guests, both who own agencies in Cleveland, Ohio. One of them is Carrie Reagh, who runs Social Mint, and the other, Patric Fransko, who runs iMagnet Management. They're both awesome individuals. It was recorded straight out of Chagrin Falls. Cleveland rocks. Let's get to it. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with a very special Cleveland agency edition of the Wild Business Growth Podcast. We have two amazing rock stars, superstars, NBA players, MLB. No, I'm just kidding. But we are here with Carrie Reagh from Social Mint and Patric Fransko from iMagnet Management. And Patric, thank you very much for hosting us in your wonderful office here in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. But thank you guys for coming. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Good. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. So this is very cool. So you guys, we were chatting a little bit earlier. This is the first time that we've done Wild Business Growth podcast with two guests that both have their own agencies and are, I'm sure there's some overlap in that you're both in the marketing space and both in sort of the digital space, but you guys have some very different stories. So very excited to talk about that, but kind of all ties back to Cleveland roots here. So We'll do ladies first. Carrie, you mind starting us off for anybody, any of the listeners that aren't too familiar with you yet and familiar with Social Mint yet, you mind giving us a little bit about your background, sort of where you came from and how you got started with Social Mint and the really cool repurposing stuff you're doing?
I have been a graphic designer for about 30 years. So
That's it?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's it. It's just been, like one little click. It's been a long design ride. Mm-hmm. I'm a creative by nature, so there's really no way, no matter what I do, I can really get away from it. And not that I really want to, but it was just time to. I had a design business a long time ago and had it for quite a while, but then I traveled. I still live in New York as well. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, I ended up helping a friend who's a printer who needed some help and kind of stayed. So I became a designer for him and help him in production, and he's going to be retiring not too long from now.
Oh, wow.
And I was really itching to kind of start my own business again.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be in design because you get kind of burnt out from that, and I had to think about my future and the way I wanted it to be oriented with family and whatnot. And so I actually initially started Social Mint as an agency to do social media management. Which the more research I did and the more reading about the algorithms changing on practically a daily basis, I was like, I'm not doing that. So I switched gears and ended up reading something about repurposing somewhere. And I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. That's exactly it. I can put my creativity to use. And so that's how Social Mint pivoted to where it is currently. Into content repurposing.
Okay, yeah, and I know that firsthand as well, how difficult it is with the changing algorithms. I know, Patric, you know that as well. It is seemingly on a daily basis here, and so it adds another level to it when you're trying to coach people, and the stuff that you're planning to get to them could literally, the landscape could change in the few weeks that they're rolling out something. So that's crazy.
And it wasn't creative enough. I really wanted to still be creative. Mm-hmm. So I can do it and help people come up with different things and let them put the content wherever they want to put it.
Right.
I mean, I can still help them give them ideas, but I didn't want to be in charge of the management part.
Right. Cool. So you're focusing on repurposing. So we'll dive into that a little bit more later. As far as the intro goes, Patric, same question for you. You mind giving a little bit about where you came from? I know you got some Cleveland roots as well. A little bit about your background, and then where this baby of iMagnet management came from?
Sure. Well, I've always sort of been in and around, I guess you could say, sales and marketing. I until later in life, I never really connected it. I didn't call it that, but I was reminded recently that in grade school, I used to buy the packs of bubble gum and break the pack up into individual pieces. So I'd buy the pack for 30 cents, break the pieces up and sell them for 20 cents a piece and take kids lunch money. So even at a very, very early age, I was kind of in the sales and figuring out how to market that. But spent a little bit of time in the Navy and went to college after that and actually got my degree in economics and decided when the math got crazy at the very end that I was probably not going to make a living as an economist. So went back to kind of my sales and marketing and did that in a corporate environment for a little bit over 20 years. And one of my last assignments as a chief marketing officer for a company was to put together a full 360 marketing plan for our customers. And as I presented that to them, they predominantly agreed with that plan, but almost to the person they would say, but who do we call to help us with this? Because we've tried different people and we've been burned before. And, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but it didn't take me long for the light bulb to come off and be like, there's an opportunity here to create an agency specifically to work with primarily we work with small businesses that need digital marketing help. And that was the foundation of iMagnet. And literally the day that we hung our shingle, if you will, a decent number of those people that I wrote those reports for became clients day one. So
there you go. Yeah.
Made that step a little bit easier.
Yeah, well, that's a nice natural flow then. But your background, so you've bounced around all over the place then, including your time at the Navy. And so you kind of have experienced transitions a lot. How have you been able to do that, to kind of bounce from one thing to the next, but still keep your eye on, eventually being an entrepreneur and helping out customers and keeping that main focus?
I think probably like a lot of people, I don't think I set out with a grand plan of, hey, this is where I'm going to go and here's how I'm going to navigate there.
This is how I'm going to sell bubble gum.
Yeah, this is how I'm going to sell bubble gum. And then, and then when the teacher shut me down from that, I had to pivot and figure out the next move. So, but I think it just was, I knew I was not a good student in high school and I graduated early. I graduated at 17 because I started early. Mm-hmm. I just knew I wasn't ready to go to college. And so the Navy kind of came in because I was like, I know I didn't want to stay at home and just sort of fall into a rut. So I kind of did that, saved money through there. And everything has just sort of kind of been like not a grand plan, but kind of a couple steps ahead and just saying, this seems like this would be a good, good learning experience. And then that led to something else. And so I can't really say that I set out with a grand plan to be where I am today. I just sort of navigated in the current situation and figured it out as I went.
Right. Yeah. So not thinking super far ahead, is more of next 2 to 3 years or what's the right opportunity at this time.
And I think that, as far as the transitions, I was the youngest kid in my family. So, I think grew up, and I grew up in an Italian family. So you just sort of learn to adapt pretty quickly. Like you're getting beat up by your brother and sister. Not really, but you're just between being the young. Yeah. So I just sort of, I think my personality was always predominantly a very optimistic person. And I just think that my life have been able to roll with the changes kind of.
Yeah, and we're here at your agency. You mentioned optimism, and I love your bright green branding is everywhere and just kind of has such a positive feel to it. I know, Carrie, you have a lot of really cool branding as well. It's the very similar along that optimism, that optimistic, that positive feel. So I love how you guys are both like that. So I want to dive in more to each of your businesses. So we can start with Social Mint. And well, in addition to that, you have another job. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Not really.
So not really, but you work on the printing side as well.
Yeah.
With Graphic Source. So it's amazing in itself that you're able to work in multiple jobs at the same time and still put out as much content as you do and add as much value as you do. How do you balance that?
I drink a lot of coffee. I do drink a lot of coffee, but it's hard. It's really hard to do all that, to have a full-time job where you kind of put all of your energy into it. And then when you leave work and you go home, because I obviously work at home, and I have to find more energy, which I have for about 10 minutes. And then I have to be on the computer again for another sometimes few hours, and half the time I'm falling asleep. So I worked it out where I go in early every day, except for Wednesdays. I work at home on Wednesdays. I mean, for my business. So I'm able to have one day during the week where I can work 100% on my business. And then the rest of the time is nights and weekends.
Wow.
So it's tough. I will admit that.
Yeah. And your boss, I guess, has been supportive and helpful as far as working out that time for you. And
yeah, he doesn't really get much into the marketing world at all. I don't think he's ever read a marketing article, not in a bad way, because he's an incredible businessman.
Yeah,
but
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of all me on that side.
Nice.
So that's the other part, is I bring a lot of the print side as well to marketing that I can incorporate into the digital side as well. But I couldn't ask for a better boss. I mean, I'm not micromanaged in any way. It's great. So
and you mentioned finding more energy somehow when you have 10 minutes of energy, and everybody knows after a long day what it's like to try to get back in the driver's seat and get more done.
Like last night I was working on a proposal till about 1.
Oh wow.
So sometimes that just happens. You just have to grit it out.
Just do it. Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah. Well, otherwise, it's not going to happen if you don't do it. So how is it going to? It's not just go here.
Well, we appreciate you coming today as opposed to sleeping through it. It would have been totally.
You're helping me stay awake.
It would have been.
The interview's not over. She could still sleep a little bit.
Yeah. We'll edit out the part where Carrie is snoring, but but so yeah, it's tough, and you got to pull to find that energy. But
it's creativity sometimes it's harder. That's harder to find.
Yeah. When you're tired, it's you being a creative. I think that would be the tough thing, to be creative when you're tired.
Right.
Robotic things, which I'm trying to put a lot of in my business, is systematic, more automatic things that I can, as you and I have talked about, and so that it allows me to have more time for creativity. Because sometimes you just can't make it happen. You have to kind of let it happen. That's the other thing with having it full time, is then I'm usually really motivated in the mornings. I tend to stay up late, but I love mornings.
And the energy comes easier.
It comes really easy. Like once I'm out of bed, I'm awake. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rock and roll. But
later. Yeah.
It's hard in the evenings. I don't get a lot done.
Yeah. But speaking of creativity, I'm a huge fan of the name Social Mint. I think it's a creative name in itself.
That's so nice.
How did you come up with that? What's the story behind that?
Gosh, where the heck was I? I was with a friend. We were at Panera talking about, he has a landscaping business, and I was helping him with that. We were doing a website or something, and that's funny. Like I'm trying to think of how mint came into it. It was something.
Somebody had tea or a mojito maybe.
You know what? It might have been something that simple, honestly. I truly don't remember. And I was sitting here trying to think of something I wanted social to be in the word, because it was going to be an agency, I was dealing with that. And I was like, I got to have social, but I want it to be easy. You go through the things that every small, new business goes through.
Yeah.
It's got to be easy to spell, easy to say, easy to read, without, thinking about it too much. I'm going to have to give that a thought.
URL has to be available.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's the other thing. The URLs everywhere for podcasts. You go to iTunes, you check there. Yeah. So, I know. I first started a business called Mint Relish. It was all going to be about clean eating and healthier aspects to life and sustainability and whatnot.
There you go. So you took it from the previous.
And then I was reminded of how much I hate writing. So, because it was all going to be a blog.
Yeah.
And I went, that's not going to work. So I wanted to keep mint in there. So that was, my friend said, you should do Social Mint, and looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect.
It is. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I thought you were just actually, and
that's how I came. Thank you for
you were chewing on a mint
story.
right when we sat down. So I think it's like a thing. Yeah. It's definitely,
I do that
it's not a one-time thing.
Nope.
How about you? How about iMagnet? Where did that come from?
Much more pragmatic approach.
It wasn't the same exact story as that.
I actually just the philosophy I guess I have of marketing is to not try to force the issue with people. Find out where people are paying attention and put your product and or brand or service in front of them and just attract their eyes to look at what you're trying to do. So, the name is, I like iPhone, but EYE, and the idea is just, put your product, brand, or service in front of somebody, and kind of the idea of magnetizing or drawing somebody's eye to what you're doing. So, what much more, I'm not the creative person Carrie is. So to me, it was much more.
You're very humble about it.
Magnet,
Yeah.
Right.
I want it mine to be as simple as possible.
Yeah, and then there's gonna be some management in there too. So
of course. Management. So. Yeah, always. It's good for the keywords. Get some business terms in there.
And again, I can't. Even the crazy thing, like Carrie said, we were joking around, but with how mature the internet is now, having a URL, like having the ability to find a URL or something that's catchy that's not already taken is getting more and more difficult. So.
Yeah, I counted the other saw post. Somebody said, "How many URLs do you have?" And it was sort of a joke.
Right.
And I was like, God, how many do I have? Log into GoDaddy. I have 40 URLs. I use, I think, 3.
Yeah, but it's good. But you never know.
Day.
But but if there's something else that you want to,
well, if all of a sudden I come up with one, I go buy it if it's available.
Right. Actually, that's funny you say, and you're very
of them.
familiar with my dad, Greg. We actually past Thanksgiving we all met up. He's our president and founder at Hippo Direct, and he's the same way. I can't tell you. I would say it's at least once a month, maybe more, where he'll send an email saying, "Hey, got these domain names."
That's great.
It's the same thing. So, but it's true because you see sometimes it's major companies and major tech companies that literally, sometimes they change the spelling of their name not because they think it's cool, but because that's how they get their domain name. So
I actually just sold my first URL a few weeks ago. I wasn't trying to sell it. I'd had people try to buy it over the years, and I kept saying no because I wanted it.
Yeah.
Never did anything with it. And anyway, I gave in and I sold it and made some money off it.
There you go.
And it was probably one of the first URLs I ever bought.
Yeah, it's an incognito. Well, it could be literally incognito in Chrome. Revenue stream. Hidden revenue stream.
Nice little revenue.
Yeah.
I was really surprised.
So we'll go back to you, Carrie. As far as the things that you're working on now, so I know you're doing a lot of repurposing, but over the past several years, like you've helped out clients with a wide range of things. What's you don't have to name client's name if you want, but what's something that you're working on now that you're really passionate about and a really, really exciting project that you're doing? It keeps you not falling asleep after 10 minutes.
A lot of my jobs are like that. Maybe I'm just used to it. Right. I don't have too many that I really find very boring. So I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
The one thing with the repurposing that I'm doing now, that's interesting because I haven't been doing it as a business for that long, or every time I do something new, I'm learning something new.
Right.
So it might take me 10 times longer the first time that I do it, but I'm learning something new that I can apply to the next project and all the ones thereafter. So I don't really find it, and I'm kind of good with the techie stuff. So it's probably why I'm constantly in front of a computer. But
right. And there's computers right here. So money where your mouth is.
And it very much works for me that I find them interesting.
I do like the repurposing aspect a lot.
Oh, me too.
Content. What's it say on your LinkedIn? Content, a recreator,
Yeah, I was trying to actually get away from the word repurposing for a little bit because.
Oh, well, I'll bleep them out when I go back.
No, it's all good because when I explain to people, they're like, "Well, what's content repurposing?" They think it's just like spray and pray. You just keep repeating the stuff over and over and over again, which is exactly what it's not.
Yeah.
And then I tell them what it does and how much time it can provide for them and how deep it goes into their quality content that they've already created. Then they're like, oh, and their eyes get big and they're like, yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, call me. So anyway,
exactly. You're hanging at Panera.
Yeah, more Panera.
But it's so important, and there's been some popular publications and articles about like Gary Vee's content repurposing model, or the Gary Vee content approach, the model, and how it's just an example of how literally you can have one thing, like a podcast, for example, one thing, a podcast or a video show or something, and then you can chomp out 80 different bits of content from that and put it on all different platforms and different lengths and posts and all sorts of things.
And it's not just the techie, pretty, cool, creative side of it. It's also knowing the marketing side of it.
Yeah.
And putting, encouraging A/B testing and doing different titles and doing the keyword research as to which title might work better than another on all the different platforms, so whatever channel it is that they're on or whatever ones that they're using. So there's that aspect of it too, versus being like, cool, what are your colors? And let's find a pull quote.
Carrie's actually I've talked to her a lot about this as well, as far as even for a lot of our clients that have good content that may be a little bit dated, like not dated, but it's kind of evergreen content, but it's been 18 months since it was posted.
Right.
And going back
in the internet world.
And going back in and saying all that information is still relevant and not mining information that's already there and repurposing it. And, instead of kind of thinking every week we've got to come up with something, we've got to create something new, figuring out innovative ways, not in a boring way, but innovative ways to bring back stuff that's already been created and breathe some new life into it.
If you put all that time into researching something, which if it's quality, you probably did, or you know a lot about it. It's like there's so many different other places to put it, like Medium or Quora or any of those other types of websites, and people are like, and next thing you know, they're pulling out a piece of paper and they're writing stuff down, and it's that part is cool. I really enjoy that. Yeah,
and it's and I think of it kind of an analogy to Super Bowl commercials. So when you think of it that way, obviously it's a huge investment to get a Super Bowl commercial, but after the brands run their Super Bowl commercial, after the Super Bowl's over, that's not the last you see of those ads. You see them all the time for the next year. Sometimes, think of the damn Geico Hump Day ad. That thing has been running forever, and they'll take it off, or they'll, companies will repurpose TV ads years later. The same thing can apply to digital, and there's way more pieces of content in that regard. So I think it's awesome that you've focused on that niche, and I think it's going to be growing and growing as there becomes more and more content, as everybody becomes a media company, right? Yeah. So Patric, your business, you have a lot of different services as well. You do some stuff with digital, you do some stuff with web design. You're lots of clients in a wide range of industries, lots of small business, different size businesses. Where would you say you spend the majority of your time from client projects standpoint?
We're a traditional, as you mentioned, kind of small digital shop. We kind of do we don't really get into any traditional marketing, but the full gamut of digital. The website side of it is a part of it that I don't think that when I started the agency, I really anticipated it was going to be as big of a part of what we did, because designing websites wasn't really a passion of mine, but I realized that I kind of describe it now as like the hub of a wheel. Like everything else that you're doing in digital marketing sort of ties back to the website. So if that's broken, all the other stuff you're doing on the outside isn't going to work as effectively because the website's broken. So we sort of got pulled into the website side of it more out of necessity, because if we were working with a client and their website wasn't up to par, we kind of had to fix that first. Yeah. So the website, that's kind of where we're at with the websites, and we do enjoy that, and we kind of look at that as like the foundation, like everything else builds off that. But we do everything from Google pay-per-click, social media marketing, ad buying, very targeted. A lot of our clients don't have an extremely large budget, so we really have to be very targeted with how we do ad buys on Facebook and Instagram to make sure we're only putting the content in front of eyes that are that have the greatest propensity to actually convert to sales. So instead of just putting a big budget at it and throwing it out there to a lot of people, we're really trying to do very targeted, create a piece of content with an intended audience in mind, and then follow up with an ad buy that goes directly to that targeted audience. So. Yeah, exactly. And so that's really neat that the website thing, you weren't even planning on that, but it makes sense. You gotta, that's the first thing people see online. It's what you own from a property standpoint online, not on these other platforms. That I kind of view a website in 2019 as the equivalent of a Yellow Page ad 30 years ago. Yeah. A lot of people will gauge the credibility of your company based on your website alone. Doesn't mean that your website's going to make the sale. Doesn't mean you should rely on your website. But if your website is kind of shoddy, I think even if you're the greatest company in the world, if your website's shoddy, they're going to make a judgment about your business based on. So I always tell people it's not the day of building a website that you like years ago that can convert and do all that stuff for you, and you can just sit back and have the leads come in. I think the role of a website now, there's a big credibility aspect to it, to where it's kind of like the guy that had the full page ad in the yellow pages, you assumed he was the best guy, the best plumber in town because he has the full page ad.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Shout out to the plumbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so true. And and it's SEO is always important and will always be important. And we're getting into like voice SEO now, which is a whole nother crazy world. But I agree. It does. Just the website in general does add a level of credibility, but now there's all these social media platforms and all these different ways that people more often than not find you first, that it's a different world there. As far as your current clients, or maybe it's prospective clients or past ones, what is something that you hear all the time that they're really interested? Well, like what's like the shiny, sexy thing in the marketing or ad buying world that everybody wants to do right now at the time of this recording?
I would say a lot of people are starting to ask the question about voice and things like that, and how they should be involved in voice. And for a lot of the clients that we work with, we're very early in that. Also, to a certain extent, people talk about like, virtual reality and things like that. But I think we're still a little bit away, at least for the clients we work with, we're still a little bit away. I think the big thing now is what you had mentioned a second ago with SEO and how it's playing into voice, and figuring out how to take the assets that our clients already have and begin evolving those so that they're going to be effective in 18 months from now, 12 months from now. And I think voice is a big part of that. Yeah. And I think, a lot of clients don't have the depth or the time to really dig into it. But they are, a lot of people have an Alexa or something like that in their home. So they're starting to understand that, there's a growing importance there, but they don't really understand it well enough to know what that is. They just know that they need to be there. So I would say that's probably the thing that we talk to people about. That's kind of the hot thing that's not quite here exactly yet, but people are talking about it. They know it's coming.
Yeah. And you hear stories about, I got some friends that have younger siblings or cousins, their cousins that have younger cousins, and generally the younger kids, instead of Googling and typing something, they're asking Siri, or they're using their voice to search for things. And so it's going to be like, we're going to get to the point that texting, typing for something, actually using your fingers to to search for stuff, which obviously Google, was the king forever. That's going to be outdated when you can literally just talk like this and have stuff pull up for you. So that's like a whole new world of considerations there.
Well, and I think, when you start to think about how people are going to search for things with voice, I think it really changes the mindset. Like on the web development side of it, it really changes the way that you would want to construct a website, construct SEO, because if you construct it with what works exactly today with no mind for what is going to be coming in 18 to 24 months, you're going to be rebuilding the wheel again in 24 months. So you sort of have to, I'm not a big fan of looking way, way out in the future because things change so quickly, but I do think you have to keep at least one eye out there to be like, most of my clients are working with relatively fixed budgets, so I can't afford to tell them in 2 years, hey, you know what you just spent a bunch of money on 24 months ago? Well, we're just going to throw that in the garbage and start over. I kind of have to work with them from a standpoint of like doing things today that's still going to work for them 24 months from now.
Yeah.
We can evolve it.
That makes a lot of sense. And Carrie, I know you, as mentioned before, it's amazing how much content you put out and how, fluent you are in the social media, always changing social media world, especially with, your time. You're doing so much with your time. What's your outlook? We don't need to go too far in advance, too far in the future, but what's your outlook at the time of this recording from the social media standpoint? Like obviously Instagram's hot. There's different platforms that are hot or different features that are right now. What's like right now at the time of this recording, what is kind of of biggest interest, do you think, to people in the social media world from a business or branding standpoint?
That is a good question.
Oh, thank you.
I think, unfortunately, it's not an easy answer because I think it really depends on the type of business that it is.
Yep.
And The one thing in regards to my content, you've mentioned it a couple times, is if you were to look at my Instagram's my main one. Instagram and LinkedIn are my two main channels.
Right.
That's where I put all my focus on those two, because that's where my people are.
Yeah.
Or my audience. That's where my audience is.
No, you can call them your people.
I didn't mean like the followers.
Yeah,
I meant like
your homies.
the people in the same businesses as me.
Your Panera buddies. Yeah.
My community.
Yeah.
My people. Oh, you made me do it again. I just said it again.
I think it sounds great. But true. But those Instagram and LinkedIn they're super hot right now. Like LinkedIn has over the past few years majorly evolved from just kind of like online resumes and credibility from a job application standpoint to a real social network and content network. So it makes sense that you're on those like that.
Video. Patric and I have talked about this, about YouTube videos, and videos is already huge, but it's just going to keep getting bigger.
Yeah.
And so I am constantly going deep into learning as much about YouTube videos and as I possibly can, so that that's more that I can bring to my client. But it helps me understand something that is going forward and how it's growing, because something new comes out every time. But for LinkedIn, there was only, I think I read about 100 people that have the beta live, that they can do live right now, because they're testing, like Goldie Channel.
Right, yeah.
There's very, very few people that have it. And I think they're testing that, and they're going to let the bugs work their way out for a little bit. As long as I hope that people realize it's still a business, that doesn't mean it has to be stuffy, but as long as it's kept as a business platform, then I started seeing it going a little by the way of Facebook for a bit there.
Yeah.
And I started pulling away because I was like, well, if I wanted Facebook, I'd go onto Facebook. So I think Instagram is definitely still going to be near the top there. I think Facebook is slowly going to be diminishing a little bit, but it's by so little that you wouldn't really notice it unless you were looking.
Right.
Like,
and the advertising model still is like so mature and developed by now that it's like they still have, from a business standpoint, they still, you can, and the fact that they have Instagram under their umbrella, it's still like the go-to place for advertising on social media. So.
Yeah. I don't think there is, although there's been businesses that I recommended Google ads over Facebook ads, depending on, because Facebook wasn't where their people are.
It all goes back to the people.
Their audience wasn't there. So it didn't make sense for them to go into Facebook. It made more sense for the search to be a Google ad, but that was just them. But for the majority, I still think Facebook is probably but I don't think there's a social channel out right now that will rise above the ones that are already existing in the next year or two. That's a prediction. I think they'll do this leveling out. One will beat out another for a little bit, but I don't think there's one currently that will rise to the top in the next year or two. I mean, new. I don't think there will be a new one.
A new one that right. Yeah.
I think what you said at the very beginning was spot on too. The first question you need to ask is, if you're a business marketing to somebody, who is your prospective client? Because for some clients it may be straight down the road, LinkedIn is the way to go. And for some clients, it's still Facebook. Yeah. And for some clients, it might be, it may be Snapchat. It may, there may be, you can't, there's no blanket answer.
Right. Yeah. And LinkedIn, and I think so many of us do a lot of work in B2B as well. And B2B on LinkedIn, there's so much great stuff you can do there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So.
But cool. I ended up changing my, since Instagram is my main platform, my social, I got to the point where I was doing that, I was spending half of my Sundays arranging and scheduling all of my social content for the week. And I'd be trying to batch it out. We're serious times. Sometimes if I came up with something, I'd schedule it for months in advance if it popped in my head or I was able to write it. But it was so time consuming and it wasn't really getting me anywhere. And I said, I had to reevaluate for myself. It's not necessarily what I'd recommend for everybody else. But even if you looked at my Instagram feed, everything looked branded. You could tell it was mine when you saw it as a whole. And I just went, I'm not doing that anymore. I did just let go of it. And it released so much stress for me. And absolutely nothing has changed in my channel by doing that. Nothing negative. And I started just putting more energy into relationships with people and just getting to know people, not in the hopes of business. even sometimes just being able to talk about business with other people. And if something comes out of it, great. But if not, it doesn't matter. You met somebody that you can chat with business about. And that has really benefited me, spending more time on the authentic relationships with people and getting to know them than worrying about posting things just because I felt like I was supposed to post. And it was actually kind of going against everything that I'm doing as my business when I'm talking about going deep with your quality content and not just posting things to post. I was like, well, then why am I doing it? I got to stop doing this.
The depth is the big thing, too, because, I mean, you're much better off having a smaller audience that you went deep with, that you have relationships with, than having a really broad audience and there's very little engagement just because you built
And I didn't lose
number.
Anybody by making that change. I think
That's awesome.
Not anybody. Matter of fact, sometimes it goes up and I haven't posted for a week. Not stories. I do stories, not a lot. Mm-hmm. But considering how drastically I changed that, and that works for me, but it wouldn't work for everybody. Mm-hmm. It just, the relationships ended up working out better for me.
I think people on social, especially when you're in the mindset of starting your pages on social and trying to build up your page and following and, credibility, everything that comes with that, people have the tendency to just kind of think of it on the social level as opposed to the real people level.
Yeah.
And this podcast is an example of this. We've all connected, over Instagram and social media, and now we're having real in-person conversation, and there's, different ways that our businesses could potentially work together, things like that. Like there's always a real except for the automated and the bots and all that stuff. There's a real person on the other end of that. And when you remember that it's real people and these are real, there's value in that network as opposed to, them being just another follower or someone who likes your post, then it can make a huge difference there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have one more question here for both of you before we move on to a different segment. So what is the biggest thing that surprised you since you become an agency owner?
Right now, I would say being an entrepreneur is a popular thing. People want to, and I came at it from a different angle. I spent over 20 years in a more corporate type of environment, working for other people, and I am very much the type of person. I only really, to a certain extent, I work as hard for other people as I'd work for myself. I was always a very hard worker, and I like to think that's some of the reasons I attained some of the success I did. But I will say that probably, even though I thought that throughout my career I worked hard, since I've launched an agency, I think I've worked, as far as the number of hours and the challenges and things like that, owning your own business is a lot harder work than I think a lot of people going into it understand.
So true.
And that was a surprise for me, even though I wasn't afraid of hard work, obviously, from my time in the Navy and my time in corporate jobs where I worked hard. It's a different level. At least if you want to attain some success, it's a different level. Some people that think they're going to be an entrepreneur so they can work 20 hours a week and sit on the beach the rest of it.
No.
You may be able to put entrepreneur on a business card, but you're probably not going to have a successful business.
Yeah, unless you're selling like lemon ices at the beach and that's your business.
And that's your level of success.
Yeah. What about you? What's been surprising or I guess it could be also challenging in that regard?
Although I had my own business many years ago, it's a completely different world now because everything's so much more digital. I mean, email wasn't a big deal. That was how I did everything. I hardly ever spoke to anybody on the phone, but it was like there weren't social channels then. I enjoy getting to know people, even if it's only a few people. Yeah. I don't need to be the middle of a party or the center of attention. So in starting the business, though, it kind of goes along with what I was just saying a few minutes ago when I pivoted how I was handling my own social media posts, is when I stopped doing what I kept hearing we needed to do and what we thought we were supposed to do, and I spent more time in the relationships and realized that nothing bad happened. I didn't lose a whole bunch of people. I was like, if I lost anybody, they weren't people that wanted to follow me or get to know me anyway. Yeah. So it was fine. They can do whatever. And half of them seems like sometimes they follow just to get a follow back, and I don't have time for that. So
that's that trend is not fun.
No, it's not. But I think I found that although it's not super surprising, I still find myself going, okay, I'm glad this is going in this way, where switching up the gears of my social media, where it's all about social media, and I'm doing it where I'm hardly posting. I mean, I'm posting, but I'm not posting like as much as I would
There's
actually
some
like
posts
to.
there, yeah.
There are, but I'm amazed at how many people I'm talking to, because I'm spending more time in those relationships, feel exactly the same way that I do about, because there are a lot of small businesses as well, you know, about video, or I've reached out to a couple friends of mine who have their own business, and I was like, give me some demo content and I'll repurpose it for you, and you can tell me what you think, and, you know, where I was testing some processes. And they're like, oh gosh, I don't know, my video's new, blah, blah, blah. Or we go through things like that. And then I end up being this like little cheerleader section going, come on, just give it to me, you can do it, you know. But the funny thing is they're saying the same thing to me, where I'm going, oh no, I don't really want to do it, you know, and it's this like, the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that it's not real surprising, because other than maybe it's more refreshing that I'm like, gosh, there are still so many people, they don't appear it on the outside that they seem insecure in any way about their business, but then when you talk to them, they're like, gosh, so what are you doing? Okay, what are you doing? Does this work for you? And even people that come across as being very successful and have their act together for their business and doing really well, not that they aren't, but they still have those insecurities. And sometimes that does kind of surprise me. We're like, wow, you really seem like you have it all together. It's amazing. You're doing so well. And you feel the exact same way I do inside sometimes. And so it's it's interesting.
Well, like we were talking right before we went on, and I said, you know, a recent relationship I had, it's all about, to me, creating those relationships where you can have those conversations. The more you can have true people that you're friends with, and business part of your network, to where you can just say, how are you doing that? Because I've been doing this and I'm not having a lot of success. What are you doing? Yeah. I mean, and you know, they may have tried something. To me, the more you can foster that, and again, the old adage, people do business with people, is still true today. I mean, I think we get lost in that with the digital world and things like that. But ultimately, I think it comes down to, it's still, I mean, all of us, like you said, we met digitally, but then and ended up becoming, and like, we did. You know, having
we all met
coffee
on
or
Instagram.
something like that.
Right.
And,
it's amazing.
And that goes right into the know, like, trust factor, which is still, it's a little cliche to say it now, but it's still so true.
It is. And I still remember when Carrie and I met, it was an Instagram hashtag. I forget what hashtag it was, but it was actually, it might have been the direct mail hashtag. It was something, because I think it might have been tied to your printing role as well.
Yeah, it was the direct mail.
And I saw the location, you know, and I'm based in New York, but, you know, born and raised in Cleveland, and love Cleveland, and Solon was actually my hometown. And I saw that the location for one of your posts, and I didn't know you at the time, was Solon, Ohio. And I'm just stumbled on this on the hashtag, and I never heard of the business before. And I was like, oh my God, Solon, Ohio. Yeah. And so we exchanged DMs, and, you know, several months after that, we met in person, Thanksgiving, and here we are today. So it's just, you never know, even an innocent hashtag, you never know what that can turn into. So that part is very cool.
Like Chagrin Falls.
That's right.
Yeah, you guys both have the Chagrin Falls.
That's how we met.
That's
through
true.
Chagrin Falls hashtag.
That's amazing.
I DM'd Carrie and said, hey, you want to grab coffee? We're both agencies. We're both here local. And let's just, again, to me, it's kind of, you know, it's having more people, like relationships like with Carrie, to where it's like we can bounce ideas off of each other. I mean, I'm a big believer in, none of us have a monopoly on good ideas. I mean, the more people you can surround yourself with, the better your ideas are going to be. The better.
We work together even, and it's nice because we're close, and we can actually meet in person and talk. And
obviously, hashtag. You know, if people didn't think hashtags were important enough, now
I know, right?
there's more than meets the eye with hashtags. So that's incredible. Hey, wild listeners, have you been wanting to start a podcast for yourself or your business, but didn't know where to start? Or do you have a podcast of your own, but you're struggling with the time commitment? I'd love to help. Shoot me an email at max@hippodirect.com with any podcasting questions you have. I'm also happy to jump on a 30-minute call where we can discuss your idea, planning, production, promotion, and other elements of the podcasting world. Let your podcast run wild. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to do a little segment on inspiration and creativity. So for you guys, think about what keeps you creative, what keeps you inspired. So Patric, we'll start with you. Just in general, what do you do to stay creative?
I mean, I think there's probably a couple different things. I actually do consume a lot of, whether it's books, podcasts, things like that. I try to listen to a lot of other people's, you know, commentary with regard to, like I said, whether it's a podcast or a book, and just sort of really absorb what they're saying and then let that sort of, I don't take everything in, but it's just like when you get a lot of ideas and then you sort of distill it down to, okay, what's my position on that and what do I think about that? And it just forces me to sometimes, and I kind of tend to listen to voices that I know are going to be contrarian to my own. Specifically, like I seek out voices that are going to tell me that what I think is wrong, because it forces me to sort of challenge my own thought processes.
So you look for that devil's advocate.
I do. In fact, even with the news I watch, when I have a chance to watch news at night, I always watch, rather than watch news that's going to tell me what I want to hear, I watch the news that is going to get me a little bit ticked off and be like, I can't believe that's what they said, because I want to be challenged.
Yeah.
And it allows me to kind of refine my own beliefs to be like, anything that's worth believing in should be able to stand up to critique.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, if you ever get to, so I don't know if this is a roundabout way to answer your question. I want to challenge.
Round table roundabout.
I want to challenge what I think and the way we're doing things as a company, all aspects of my life. I want to challenge those things and say, just because I've been doing it that way doesn't mean that's the way I should do it tomorrow. Always be willing to be like, hey, that doesn't mean just because that's how I never want the words to come out of my mouth. Well, that's how we've always done it. When I know I'm on the wrong path.
That's when, you got to pivot again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any names, it could be big names in the space, or whose content do you really like to consume right now and gets you fired up in the business space?
I've actually, I'll answer one that's kind of an easy layup, and everybody will be like, well, that's an easy one. But I've definitely been influenced over the years from Gary Vaynerchuk.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
You asked for it.
I was fortunate to meet Gary for the first time not long after he was getting out of the wine thing and starting this thing. And just have consumed his content. I sort of kind of go on and off where I'll listen to it for a while and then I sort of don't listen to it as much.
Yeah.
And I've actually, so I would say that's one that would be kind of currently where everybody's sort of listening to him. But I've actually, one that I listened to years ago that I've kind of went back to is, if you're familiar with Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and some things like that. And going back to some old school things that I've read and kind of and realizing that some of that content is evergreen. It's just because it was written.
There you go.
Yeah. Just because it was written 30
like
years
the
ago.
Dale Carnegie book.
Yeah,
I mean, how to win friends and influence people.
That's a great book
Another
as
one?
well.
Okay.
I mean, so I found for me, it's just it's a mix of trying to, again, I'm always looking for new podcasts to at least try out to just listen to them. And, when I have time, I like to listen to Tim Ferriss's podcast, but sometimes I don't have an hour and a half.
Right. Yeah. I found his, when I first started listening to his, it was right before I was about to get on a flight, and I realized that's the perfect time to listen. If you're not reading, so I'll do this crazy thing sometimes where I'm listening to a podcast and I'm reading at the same time, but it's a lot. Anyway, it's much easier to just listen to a podcast, and those super long ones are awesome for that. But he has some that are under 2 hours too, but he's definitely been a weekly at least staple for me as well. How about you? Let's go back to initial question, Carrie. What do you do to stay creative besides somehow keeping yourself awake after those 10 minutes wear off of energy?
Actually, I don't have to work to be creative necessarily. It's more the motivation, I guess, to do it. It's not that I don't really seek out different ways to help my creativity. I might have many years ago where I was just looking for maybe, you look at an art book or something like that to kind of shift the way I was thinking, or if I was, sometimes when they show you something, then you have that in your head. So oftentimes I try not to look at anything anybody's already done, so that everything that comes into my head is completely my own.
Goes back to what you're saying about your own business in a way.
Yeah. So I think now, to answer more the inspiration question, I love talking about business. I love hearing what other people are doing. And it's kind of what you were saying about how you like hearing the contrarian side
Yeah.
of things.
Mhm.
I'm not really a glutton for punishment in that aspect. I have other ways that I torture myself. But to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I would want to go to bed all stressed out. But I get that though.
But it's not
I get
stress,
it.
though.
No, it would totally stress me out. That would for me, I'd be like, oh my gosh.
Maybe that depends on the person.
Probably my
completely.
favorite professor in college, economics professor, was somebody that I adamantly almost disagree with every single economic principle, like theory that they have.
Funny.
I'm 180 degrees opposite, but her and I are close to this day, 25 years later, because it's like we each respect each other's opinion. And to me, the important thing is I have to, even if I totally disagree with you, if I feel there's an interest that I have in saying, Carrie's a smart person and she believes this, which is totally separate from me. But because I acknowledge the fact that she's smart, I want to understand why she believes that. I mean, she doesn't believe that because she's just not intelligent. So to me, there's an intrigue in my mind to say, what am I missing?
Right.
Because
I feel exactly
I want
the
to see
same way.
things through your eyes.
Right.
Because almost everything I read and almost everything that I listen to right now is all business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to anything for fun. Not because I don't want to, but I actually enjoy listening to the business things. And I can't say that, oh my gosh, this person is somebody that I always follow, because it depends on where I am in my business and what I'm looking for, that I'm completely inspired. And I might just sit there like on that Wednesday that I have the whole day that I can concentrate. And so in the mornings, that's why I never can meet in the morning, because that is my power time. That is my time when I wake up and I have my coffee and I'm sitting there and I'm going through, I have a couple things in my mind that I want to look at, or maybe listen to a specific podcast or research a little something. And I try not to let myself get too deep into it, like that rabbit hole, because God knows that can go on. You get into YouTube and like 5 hours later, you're like, that's how you brush your hair, things like that.
It's like the Wikipedia rabbit hole, same sort of thing.
The Wikipedia one,
or IMDb.
Click. And so that actually inspires me a lot, and my brain just explodes with ideas. So I can't even write them down fast enough half the time. And I do have to write it down because it's a lot faster than everything else for me.
Yeah.
But so that actually kind of probably ties into the creativity, but the creative side is more natural for me, so I don't have to work at that quite so much. It's more the having like the energy to do it, but the other, listening to the different podcasts or reading the different books, and whoever's inspiring me. Like I went to Social Media Marketing World this year, and some of the keynotes, I'm practically getting goosebumps thinking about a couple of the keynotes.
I think you are,
I listened to it and I was like, oh my, I almost couldn't wait to leave so I could go like write everything down, because I wouldn't let myself do that like right while I was in there, because I wanted to be 100% in the moment.
I get that.
It was fantastic. So that's kind of what I do.
And the note thing I think is funny, because you know I'm struggling to keep up with all the ideas here, writing notes as well. So it's the same. It's the same sort of thing.
I have a lot of Post-its.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
we're here at
neater than mine, but
we're here at Patric's agency, and he literally has at least five Post-its hanging from one of his computer monitors as we speak. So
2 big monitors, one of them's covered with Post-its, and then a laptop in the middle.
So before we move on here, just it could be your favorite all time or just the first one that comes to mind. I'd love to hear your favorite book and favorite podcast, of course, in addition to this one.
Are there other podcasts other than this one? Because this is the most amazing. It eclipses them all. You know what? I couldn't pick a favorite podcast.
Okay. I guess it's just this one, so thank you. Thank you, Carrie.
Yes, you're welcome. I would say that I go through phases. It's a good thing that CastBox, the free version, only lets you have, I think, 30.
Okay.
Because I'd have hundreds in there if I could. So I'm forced to go through and take out the ones that I haven't listened to for a while. Wow. And I went, you know what? That's okay, because it ends up coming back eventually. And that's totally fine. So I couldn't say I have a favorite.
Okay. How about from a book standpoint? You mentioned the one earlier, but something else that really caught your eye.
Chris Ducker's Youpreneur. I can't remember the full title.
We'll include it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Youpreneur, I think.
That's pretty good. And I saw him speak at Social Media Marketing World, and he mentioned a lot of the things in the book. So I was on the plane reading the book. Pieces
That's cool.
I have it's all dog-eared, and I've got Post-its and markers and highlighters and all this like stuff out. It looks like a little notebook. And then I saw him, and I was like this like giddy little schoolgirl sitting on the side, just wanting to like get a picture. And I was like, oh my gosh, and
wait, what were you like? I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you.
I know.
But that's so. It's right
so
after
it was
you
cool,
meet him in
though.
person.
Yeah. So it was Pat Flynn is a big favorite.
He's
he's pretty amazing.
Incredible person.
Yeah, I'm very inspired by him and the things that he does and the way he is with his family and his.
And now he's invented the switch button. Now he's inventing.
Did you get one?
Products? No, I have not.
I got mine. It will be coming in August. Well, I
awesome.
ordered it.
Yeah, it's pre-ordered.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's cool as well when people that obviously he had a business beforehand, and before he became so big in the content world, or I guess it was kind of hand in hand with him. But it's really cool when people that are just known so well in the online world and the audio world are releasing physical products as well. And his Kickstarter was like it blasted off like so quickly.
It was crazy.
It was
crazy. Between him and Caleb, they were just talking about people that really knew what they were doing as far as marketing goes. Do you know how I came across Pat Flynn actually? How he started, if you ever listen to his story and how he started his business, he was an architect. Yeah. And he got when he was studying for LEED, do you know what LEED is?
Yeah, LEED.
Yeah. Well, I was looking to study for the LEED, I think it's called LEED GN, which is the green sustainability. Yeah. I told you I was a green building nerd, just sustainability nerd. I was looking into taking it, and I was doing just a Google search and tripped on this guy, he was talking about the LEED thing, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And of course I went down a rabbit hole. 500 clicks later, I was like, Pat Flynn, what is all this stuff? And I don't think I looked back.
Wow. Okay. So you met him. Nowadays I feel like so many people know him because he's so big in the podcasting and the social media space and speaking and stuff.
It was all old. It wasn't like that long ago.
But that's how he was built up at the start. So that's really cool.
It was pretty funny. I was like, oh my gosh, that's actually how I found him.
Yeah. A very sustainable way to find him. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But let's get to a fan favorite segment here. This is the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week!
Wild Business Shout Out of the Week. This is where we talk about recent ad or campaign. This is actually going to be Wild Business Shout Outs of the Week, since we got both of you guys here. So, recent ad or campaign that caught our attention. Earlier, Patrick, you were talking about pizza because, of course, we're very hungry. So, exactly. Can you just walk us through quickly your example that caught your eye?
I had said it wasn't really a campaign, but just an admiration of how Domino's has really utilized the current landscape of digital, the digital landscape to optimize their business, making it and really understanding who their customers are, the platforms they're spending time on, and how they want to interact with a company, and being willing to break the mold of how they've done it and really embrace. There was nobody that was going before them that was really showing them the way. They were really, pioneering it. So just watching what Domino's has done over the course of the last couple of years and how they've taken something, like a commodity, like a pizza, and really utilized the digital landscape to really actually revolutionize their business. And I think right now there's not even another like national chain that I think is even, that I would even put close to them, because they were so quick to jump and embrace that. So.
Yeah, they're very, very techie, as you said, or tech savvy. Yeah. And I think they're always coming up with new, quote unquote, sexy campaigns or new sort of techie gadgets and things to add to their app. And that's pretty cool in the digital world. But they also, if you remember back, and I think back to like when I was in school, and there was Domino's Day, which was exciting for kids because it was like pizza that day. I'm thinking about this is like elementary school. It was Domino's Day like maybe once a month, and some people got excited for that since it was pizza. But I felt like as I was growing up, and people and my friends, as we were growing up, people kind of shied away from Domino's because people were like, the pizza's not actually that good. Like other people had better pizza, and somehow maybe this was widespread. So Domino's clearly received that feedback, because I remember they ran campaigns, and this is several years ago at this point now, but they ran campaigns that were saying, hey, we heard you guys, our pizza, our quality is not consistent, it's not that good. and we've made changes. So, you know, we've made a point to be better with with pizza, which is obviously what they sell. It's what they are. And I think that reflects very positively as a brand. Is like, they were like, basically, hey, yeah, okay, our pizza has sucked and we're here to fix that. We got your guys back. We're not going to just, you know, go away and die. We're going to make it better for you. So it's,
I think that the quality of the whatever you're marketing, I think a lot of people think that there's a magic bullet with regard to marketing. Like if you use a certain platform, you use a certain, you know, you find the right way to manipulate the algorithm, whatever. But at the core, to what you were saying is the product, whatever your product is, it's got to be good, or it only is going to survive for so long. So I think what they've done is not only listen to feedback and improve their product, but then also in the process of probably listening to that feedback, have really transformed their whole company to say, we're going to listen to our customers and we're going to give them what they want, the way they want it, on the platforms they want to use.
Yeah.
And so I think that listening, and maybe went back to when they were listening about the quality of the pizza, but they've really taken that internally. It seems like throughout their company, they're like really listening to the way people want to interact with their brand.
Yeah, it's the behaviors of how people are interacting online and offline. And naturally, of course, what goes with pizza is beer. And so we are going to talk about beer. Budweiser here. Carrie, what's your example that you want to talk about for Wild Business Shout Out of the Week?
I wanted to mention the Dwayne Wade commercial where he was collecting jerseys, and it ended up being a Budweiser commercial. I think the first time I saw it, I didn't even know whose commercial it was. I heard the buzz, saw it, cried, and thought, this is truly an amazing commercial. It didn't even seem like a commercial to me, which made it even more impactful. And it wasn't them talking about the product. Actually, they didn't talk about the product at all in there, which makes it even more amazing. That's why it's like that could have really been brought on by anybody.
Yeah.
But it was, they reached out to people emotionally and had real people in there, not just actors. Closing with his mom, you know, they weren't shying away from her past and whatnot. And I thought that was so incredibly strong. And even him going into it, and they just talked a little bit about his character of wanting to save jerseys from his friends from every game and creating this thing, saying he wanted to remember and have this, you know, emotional connection to it. I was like, that's amazing. So it's like the commercial just kept building on itself.
Yeah.
Or the story. It's hard to call it a commercial. Yeah. And then you look at the end and go, oh, that was by Budweiser? Wow, Budweiser gets me right here.
And it's crazy to think how short that piece was.
Yeah.
But good stories don't have to be long. I mean, that was like not, you know, it just showed you how in a very brief amount of time you could really tell a story that really, I think most people that watch that commercial, it wasn't about, like you said, it wasn't about the beer or anything like that. It just really connected with people. Yeah. I mean, and
they could relate to it, but since they had real people in there with different stories, even though you only heard snippets of the stories, that was enough.
It's amazing whenever a brand does something, or an agency, you know, or the agents behind it does something that literally gives you chills and or brings you to tears. It like the emotion, like it's that compelling that it does that. And sometimes it's in just a few minute window or less like that. I'm surprised there's not like more like a terminology for that, like a chills factor, you know, like get to that level that people, it gives them goosebumps, because that's really, you know, talk about marketing from an emotion standpoint, from a feeling standpoint, that's really what you strive for. But to your point, the fact that you didn't even know it was a Budweiser commercial until the end, and maybe not even the first time you watched it, like that, they nailed it, because your brain shouldn't be up front in that. I think
it's one of the few commercials I think I've ever looked for just to watch again, even though because it didn't seem like a commercial to me. It was just like this amazing little piece of wow, that's powerful.
That's powerful. so we only got a little.
Obviously, our creative verbal energy is dying.
So we only got on that note. So we only got a little bit of time left. I'd love to wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You guys ready for it?
Yeah, okay.
We're ready.
Bring it.
All right, let's get wild. Very wild. This is gonna be very rapid fire now. But in this one, I'm not gonna say which one you guys go first. Just shout it out. Okay. and we'll see how that goes. If we shout everything out at the same time, then we'll have to change that, obviously. But just first thing that comes to mind, what is your favorite restaurant in Cleveland?
Mama Santa's in Little Italy.
There you go. I was about to say, don't shout them all out at once now.
Well, I had a couple pop in my head. I was trying to decide a townhouse.
You could be two. Townhouse.
Yeah.
Where's that? What?
I think it's Ohio City way. I just know how to get there, but I'm not exactly, because some of those little areas are so close to each other that I'm not sure which one is which.
Yeah, Ohio. We'll call it Ohio City.
Amazing.
Townhouse. Okay. You said you had another one?
We'll go with that. Yeah.
Townhouse it is. Okay, check. Favorite movie of all time?
Dead Poet Society.
Interesting.
A movie called Interesting.
Singing in the Rain.
Hmm?
It's actually one of my all-time favorites. Definitely top 2.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
I got a good one, but I'll let you go first.
No, you go first.
Well, this is actually ties into the conversation. My biggest pet peeve, we were talking about LinkedIn, is when people send you a friend request on LinkedIn, and literally within 30 seconds of you accepting the friend request, you have a message from them totally spamming you. I'm like, do you in 2019, do you totally not get what, what
or
this
even
is
sending the intro where there's a spot for a note. Leave a 3-word note or something.
Right, they don't say anything.
They don't say anything. I usually ignore those if they don't have a note.
I just
most of the time, unless I know.
As soon as I accept a friend request, and then all of a sudden my direct message lights up, and it's them with the pre-programmed thing. That's a real pet peeve.
It's a red flag. Yeah, or blue flag on LinkedIn.
That's a good one.
How about you?
I had thought of a few of them as you were saying that, and they all surrounded around phones and tablets for some reason. So I don't know why. I don't know where that's coming from. But it drives me crazy when parents let their kids play on their phone or on a tablet in public, and all you're hearing is that ding, 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 and the little kid music and stuff.
Like at restaurants? Like at
anywhere.
Restaurants or like a...
It doesn't, if it's in public, that music will drive you to drink. It's
hence the Budweiser commercial.
It's like, if there's ways of doing it or find something else, you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to have that.
Maybe that should be the next Budweiser
crazy.
commercial.
Could be.
Oh my gosh, so
it gives me chills just thinking about it.
They'll know exactly what. It doesn't even matter what beer it is. But that's
that's a good one.
Crazy.
And I mean,
when people call you and you're like, hello. And they're actually talking to somebody else, and you're like, hello, hello. And you're like, you called me.
Right. Yeah, we're on the record here. We're live here. What about favorite food of all time? Like a food that literally you could eat if it was the only thing you could eat for the rest of your life.
Burger.
Any particular type, or just burger in general? Like toppings.
A good burger.
Good burger. Good burger?
Yeah.
Keenan and Kel?
No, like the kind that where the meat. Because I don't need the bun. It's just too filling. I like when the meat is so good it can stand on its own. I mean, not just beef, like not just regular old. I mean, it's just, some of it's just got different flavor to it. There's a couple of restaurants in town that do that, and they just, they're so good. I'm literally drooling as we're talking about it.
You're drooling, you're crying, you're goosebumps.
I know, I'm so emotional.
Time for that Budweiser.
Right. How about
if health is not an issue,
no, this open slate,
I threw that out the window with the burger. I was like, I couldn't eat it all the time.
What if you took the bun away?
I would love
to. Call that, I felt liberated. Fried chicken.
You're welcome.
For sure. Good fried chicken. I would,
like Kentucky Fried Chicken, or like homemade fried chicken, because some people like one or the other.
Kentucky Fried Chicken hasn't been good since they changed the oil. When it was really unhealthy for you, that's when it was good.
Some Domino's.
That's what my dad likes. He likes the old version of it.
Yeah.
Can't look at
That's good. I'm starving now.
Now you're really hungry.
Okay, and then this, just one word answer. First, it could be multiple words, I guess. Favorite band or artist of all time? Who comes to mind?
Queen.
Queen?
The Smiths.
The Smiths.
The Smiths were good.
Yeah. Queen and the Smiths. Collab.
Queen probably popped in my head because I heard it today on the radio on the way home.
What song was it?
I think it was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh,
You know, it's a good one,
okay.
where you're singing in the
It's
car.
a great
you're
era
all-
for Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie.
You're all embarrassed because somebody's driving past you
Right.
and you're like belting out a tune, sounding
You
horrible.
got it.
That was
As long
Yeah.
as you got it.
But
You got it,
You
right?
had to.
I know. I feel bad if anybody's in the car with me.
Right, yeah, but at least no one saw you, and no one knows about it until you share it on a podcast. So, I'm just messing
They
with you.
can't see me. It's okay.
Right. Well, that's amazing. All right, well, guys, thank you so much. This has been incredible. Carrie,
you for
Patric,
having
thank you
us.
so much. Of course, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you, Patric, for literally having us. And before we sign off here, where is the best place for people to connect with you and your business? You guys are too nice. For anybody who can't see, they're literally offering each other to go first. So we might never wrap up because it's just going to be, no, you go. No. Carrie, you can go first.
You can go to my website, socialmintcontent.com.
There you go. Bam. And find
That's the
everything else from there.
easiest way.
All right.
And you can reach me. It's Patric Fransko. No K on the end of Patrick. I'm on all the social channels, and iMagnet Management, spelled like the I-E-Y-E. You can find me online there as well.
Perfect. And there's no K in iMagnet either.
No
I'm
K in
kidding.
I tried to put one
Just
in there,
confirming.
but,
I'm curious, actually. That says, I noticed your name was spelled like that. Is there a story behind it, or is...
There is actually. My grandfather, his middle name was Patrick, and they actually left the K off as an accident at the hospital.
Oh, no way.
That got passed down to my father, so they kept the K off. It got passed down to me, and now my son's middle name is Patrick with no K as well. So
That's
one
really
lady's
cool.
slip
That
up
is
at the
cool.
hospital generations ago has carried on.
That's a good
That's really
story.
cool.
I like that.
Thank you for sharing it. All right, last thing here. Final thoughts. Is there just a final quote or final thought you have? You can go first, Patrick. Wrap us up here. Stage is yours.
My final thought is just for people to, I guess it'd be two small things. One is to try to remain optimistic. We live in a world where I think people like to look at the bad side of things, and I tend to be somebody that really feels like there's a whole lot more good that's going on than bad, and focusing on those things is rather than the negatives. And two, I would just say to be willing to embrace change. I mean, one thing we can be sure of, the only thing we can be sure of is the uncertainty of what's tomorrow. So just be willing to embrace the fact that things are going to change, and just figuring out how to do that. Those are the two things I try to, as my kids get a little bit older, try to instill in them and other people I talk to, because you could easily get really frustrated every single day with not only things changing, but just, all the negativity that, is surrounding us. And
Yeah, absolutely.
so.
And you, Carrie, quote, thoughts, whatever you want.
Well, and going with the business theme.
Oh, okay.
I know. It's a wild hippo thought.
Wild!
Those are the best kind of thoughts.
As you said that, and Patrick was answering, the first thing that came to my mind was the quote on persistence. And that is something my dad printed out and gave to me many, many, many years ago. I wish I could remember when he gave it to me. I was probably like a kid, like 10 or something. And I laminated it with tape, because I didn't have anything else. I had the tape all over it. And I still carry that around with me. And in going along with the business theme, if you want to be successful in whatever that means for you, that you need to be persistent. And I think in today's day and age, it's so easy to get overwhelmed and feel very small, especially when we're first starting out. And to know that many people feel the same way that we do, and with the imposter syndrome, or that we don't know anything yet, or we're too insecure in all of our little different ways, is to just be you and authentic, and work to develop real relationships with people, not just all about business, but get to know people for who they are, not just for work stuff, and just keep working at it, and just keep doing it. And right when you get to know something, do it even more. Just keep working harder, and you're going to get there. That was the first thing I thought of when you said that.
Absolutely. Well, spot on. You nailed it. Well, thank you guys again. You are living proof that Cleveland rocks. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The land is in very, very good hands. Thank you so much, Carrie and Patrick, for coming on the show. And a special thanks to Patric for hosting all of us. And thank you, Wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. Whether you're from Cleveland or not, here's what you can do to make the most of the show. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also dive into our endless marketing and business growth resources at hippodirect.com/blog and hippodirect.com/newsletter. That newsletter is the Hippo Digest, and it's your weekly recap of creative marketing from all around the web. And last but not least, make sure to say hey on your favorite social media platforms at the handles Hippo Direct and Max Brandstetter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!